So I'm happy to be here to share with us briefly on how we can empower local communities to move forward our sea turtle conservation agenda. As Daniel said, I'm the Director for Wildlife and Human Resource Organization. So today I'm speaking in that capacity and I'm wearing that hat this morning. I have 10 minutes to speak, but I'm starting, so I'll ask for 3 to 5 more minutes so that I can set the base for this whole discussion by being able to talk about what sea turtles are briefly before I jump into the threats. And for the threats, I'll look at the general threats with speed. And then I can also talk about then the poaching. I'll look at the types of poaching, and I'll take us briefly through the dynamics of poaching within the coastal communities based on some research that WHO has done. And then I'll talk about the drivers for poaching, because I believe that understanding the problem is a kickstart for the solutions. Before I dive into some interventions, and here I will just mention a few of the interventions that have been used, and WHO is piloting also for sea turtle conservation in coastal communities. Currently, we work in along 7 beaches, which is over 30 kilometers. And so we have some community experience, which I want to share with us this morning. As most of us know already, sea turtles are very ancient. They were there before the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are gone and they are still around with us. And so when we are talking about adaptability and survival, then these species have a lot to share with mankind. As the name suggests, they spend most of their life at sea, but they only come to the shore for about 1 hour to 1.5 hours to lay their eggs as part of their reproductive cycle. And that is where they face most of the threats that we are going to talk about today. To talk a bit about their importance, they promote seagrass growth and dispersal. They promote coral reefs, which are one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet and support about 25% of the biodiversity in the ocean. And then sea turtles also promote fish by reducing jellyfish population. And that is, for me, the highlight we'll be talking about in coastal communities when we are doing our awareness and conservation activities. Promoting seagrass, they feed on the grasses and keep it at a healthy stand. Also, as they move through the grasses, the spores and seeds will attach to the shells, and then they help with the dispersals when they swim away to favorable areas where the spores now begin to grow and then disperse. Sea turtles have the stomach to digest one of the most complex materials in the ocean, and that is the sponges. These sponges feed our boreholes into coral reefs. And I already mentioned that coral reefs are very important for the marine ecosystem. So if you have a lot of sponges, then we are going to collapse the coral reefs, and that is going to affect the biodiversity in the ocean. So the sea turtles clean the coral reefs by feeding on these sponges. And turtles also feed on jellyfish. The gelatinous jellyfish is most preferred by leatherbacks. And as you can see in the image and then the footage, jellyfish also feed on our fishes. And just yesterday, we were in one of the coastal communities, and you could see a lot of fish in the belly of just one jellyfish. So with a lot of jellyfish in our waters now, our fisheries is going to collapse. And sea turtles are designed to be able to feed on these jellyfish and then promote the fish growth. There are a lot of other benefits, but for time, these are the 3 that I want to highlight because they're important for the coastal communities that we work in. For the threats, we know them already. People mine sand on the beach, which prevents the turtles from being able to access the back beach to lay their eggs because these cliffs are created. There's a lot of plastic on our beaches now, which the sea turtles mistakenly eat as food, or they entangle them and reduce their maneuverability within the ocean by creating drag. And then also we have dogs predating on turtle eggs, as well as human beings picking these eggs to eat as food. And I'm told that when you add a lot of spices a little portion of it can be sold for 10 Ghana cedis based on some interviews we did in the Volta region recently. And so it's a delicacy in most communities. Turtles are also caught in fishing nets. I'm not going to spend time on it because my colleague Daniel will talk about bycatch. But then also an emerging trend now we are seeing is where the abandoned nets on the beach trap these young ones, that is the hatchlings, and them from making their way to sea. That is also a huge impact to the population now. Light on the beach affects sea turtles, and then diseases like fibropapilloma tumor, which was first documented in Ghana in 2010 on the beaches of Adanfor, but is becoming predominant in our waters now. They also prevent visibility and then reduce the ability for turtles to feed and ultimately cause their mortalities. But for today, I'm going to talk about poaching, and poaching happens in two areas. We have those that are happening offshore. Fishermen accidentally catch the turtles in their nets, but they don't release them and eat them for food or kill them and sell the meat for income. And then we have those that are happening on the beach where community members actively pursue nesting turtles, turn them over if it is a olive ridley or green, and then kill them or drag them to the back of the beach and kill them. Also, if it's a leatherback, they just butcher them wherever they found them on the beach. And this is happening at an alarming rate along the entire stretch of Ghana. Like I said, we have project sites in all four coastal communities. And so we know the issues and options along the entire coast of Ghana. In most of the coastal communities, there's a kill site, and the kill sites are locations where they actively kill sea turtles. And these are known and they can easily be pointed out to you by local community people. But the question is, why is nothing being done about these kill sites? The meat is usually roasted or smoked, and they are sold with fish on the market. The interviews that we did suggest that even there's transboundary shipment of turtle meat where neighboring countries are benefiting from the kills in Ghana because the fishmongers hide them under the fish and then they cross their borders with them. We are still yet to investigate more, but this is the information that we have and the reasons why people are preferring them as a delicacy. The drivers, why do people kill turtles? From the studies that we have done, most of them will want to eat it for food, and that is because now the population of fish in the sea has gone down. People report zero catches of fish, and so the first attempt is to feed the family. So when they kill the turtle, they want to make sure there is enough meat in the house. Before then, they will try to go and sell some of the meat for income. There are a group of people that also kill it mainly to sell and also to get food from it that is there. And then in the Volta region in particular, they use the turtle oil to cure diseases like asthma. Sometimes they mix it with honey, sometimes they drink it raw. So in communities where they don't even kill turtles for the meat or the money, they have killed them because they needed the oil to treat those diseases. And sometimes out of anger of a turtle destroying a fisherman's net, they kill the turtle and then they sometimes even throw it away, or mostly they go and sell it to get money to repair the damages that the turtles have caused. So out of nuisance, the fishermen also kill turtles. The age group that is involved mostly are the youth. And I'm mentioning this because of something I'll talk about later. The youth is the most culprit when it comes to poaching. But in the fishing communities of Ghana, research has also shown that the youth is the dominant workforce. And so that also corroborates what we are saying, that the youth is the most culprit when it comes to killing of sea turtles. Now, most of them also do not have education, and that means that their job options are limited sometimes to only fishing, and that puts them in constant interaction with the sea turtles, also increasing the rate of poaching along our coastal communities. But to worsen the case, most of the fishing communities or the fishermen, they have over 10 dependents, and dependents are individuals that they feed, they take care of in school, sister's child, uncle's daughter, friend's child, that depends on them. So there's always demand on these fishermen for money and for survival, coupled with the fact that they have low education and so no jobs. The demand for survival is really putting a lot of pressure on them. So to sum up all the drivers of poaching, we have the demand for food and income, the low literacy rate, which is leading to lack of coastal dwellers, high dependence on fishermen, and poverty level. And whenever there's poverty, people will do anything to survive, including killing sea turtles. And so if you look at the trend for the nesting numbers that we've had along our coast, this is the 10-year data collected by WHRO. You realize that the most dominant species, the olive, the leatherback, and then the greens, the populations are declining over time. And that is because poaching is increasing along our nesting beaches. How do we get the support of coastal communities to promote this conservation agenda? Our hope is that turtles can come and nest freely and then go back to sea without any interference. And even when they mistakenly go into people's homes, we are hoping that the community members can by themselves release these turtles. But that is not going to happen until we put in measures. So we have used awareness. I'm sure most of the projects do this, varied form of awareness. We have done law enforcement in the past. Having worked with the Wildlife Division myself, I've arrested several people for killing turtles or collecting their eggs, as you can see in some of the images here. We have even tried to influence policy by organizing the National Sea Turtle Conferences, which some of us have attended in the past. And then we also try to improve the habitats for sea turtles to be able to nest. And WHRO does a lot of these cleanup exercises. But the question is, have they been enough to reduce the poaching on the beaches? If not, then what is really needed? And for me, I believe that what we need now as a team, as a group, is behavioral change, where we can change the mindset of the coastal communities to see these resources as valuable and to protect them. And if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the base of the pyramid, you realize that we have air, water, food, shelter, sleeping materials, clothes, and reproduction. The needs say that until the base of the pyramid is satisfied, the individual will not think about the next level. And so if you remember the graphs that I showed, food was the number one reason why people killed the turtles. And it goes to suggest that until we satisfy the needs of these coastal communities to be able to feed themselves and their dependents, the poaching will therefore go on. And so in our conservation actions, we have to start thinking creatively. How can we therefore improve these measures that will bring food to the table and therefore cause the people not to want to harm the turtles? We've been speaking with the coastal communities for some years now, and listening to them, it always came down to money. How can I take care of my family? And so for me, my main recommendation will be that the direction for us to go is to think of how we can bring economic benefits to these coastal communities so that they can also support our conservation agenda. It has been said, and research has proven, that if you're able to put economic value to any natural resource, the people themselves will help you to protect it. And that is why everybody wants to go to places like Caribbeans, they want to go to Hawaii, they want to go to Zanzibar to swim with turtles. They have found a way to put economic benefits to these natural resources. And so the local communities revere some of these natural resources. And I think that is the way we should be going as a country and as a conservation movement. Ways to introduce economic benefits to the coastal communities is by including them in your patrols and monitoring and finding some allowances for them. For us, all the projects that we run are done solely by local community members. We just offer the training, we build their capacities, and then we incentivize them and provide them with the needed equipment to be on the beach. It is also a safety measure because once they are from the community, they know the fishermen themselves, and so hardly would they want to harm them. And so one person has asked me in the past, how do you ensure safety of your team on the beach? And I said, it's simple. Pick local champions that are well known in the communities, maybe even pick poachers and turn them into rangers, and you kill two birds or even several birds with just one stone. You can also have sea turtle protection volunteers that can assist you with awareness creation, rescue and safe release measures. I think my colleague Daniel will speak more about that. And then bycatch release interventions. We conducted a study on bycatch and we worked with the local fishermen, and the information spread like wildfire. Also, in your research and data collection, you can also include them as research assistants and find stipends for them. And through all these, they are gaining economic benefits and they will support your conservation agenda. Growing up, my love for sea turtle grew when I was giving tours to people that came in, and that is me, the young me there, and the younger me there. Now I'm very old, but when I was young, I used to take a lot of tourists on tours, and that gave me a sense of fulfillment, knowing that I put smiles on a lot of faces. I think that is what most coastal community, the youth, are expecting, or that is what we need to cause a change in their lives. Being able to associate with white folks that come in to want to watch turtles or show interest in the turtles can give them a new sense of ownership for that resource. They will feel proud to say that, oh, I also have turtles and these folks are interested in it. And so one way to introduce economic benefits is to promote tourism in the areas where these sea turtles occur. We can also introduce social interventions. Sometimes in the past, we have also set up committees where when a turtle destroys the fishing net, we just replace that portion that is destroyed, and therefore the fishermen desisted from killing these turtles. The women that go into smoking the turtles, we have in the past trained them in soap making. In some communities, we introduce organic farming and snails rearing and other livelihood interventions, which gave them extra income and sort of reduce the pressure on wanting to smoke turtles. These are also effective ways of building capacities of the local people to be self-reliant by way of giving them something to do, particularly the women that smoke the turtles, because when they are out of the picture, it will be hard for the fishermen or the poachers to operate because they need that link to the market to be able to survive. So if we break that chain by eliminating the smokers, the turtle meat smokers, it will be hard for the poachers to also operate. Sometimes it can be as simple as just showing an act of kindness. And at our institution, one thing that we do a lot is to bring them aid in the various communities, but always make sure that it is linked to sea turtle conservation. And by so doing, you'll be able to get them to support you. Because of time, I will end it here, and hopefully the discussions will bring up more questions, which I'll be happy to address. But I want to say that if it must be done, it must be done well. And to succeed in this fight, you need to follow some protocols. There are right protocols to follow, because I've seen several projects that came up and died within the next few months. But if you follow the protocols and you did it right, you will succeed. There's a paper that my team and I did that says guiding framework to address sea turtle poaching in local communities, a case study from Ghana. We published it in the African Journal for Sea Turtle Biology and Conservation. I'm happy to share it with the group, and maybe that will be a starting point for our conservation project. I'm out of time, but I'm not out of words. So I'll end it here. And thank you very much for your audience. And thank you, Daniel, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andrew Sajikumhini. And, with emojis, we can show off our appreciation to him for sharing with us these insights. And what he touched on was community led conservation, empowering local coastal communities to prevent sea turtle poaching. Now, Dr. Jakumhine did a great job. And to show that sea turtle conservation begins not only just at your adulthood, but it's something he grew up with, and that has manifested in doing research. That's what I mentioned earlier, from academia to community, and back into academia, and then he sharing with us the recent paper that his team of researchers have published. Thank you so much, Dr. Andrew Sejekumhini, for sharing with us what you've been doing with your organization. And it's an inspiration to us, and we look forward to having more of these. We'll be taking a few questions, if there
Thank you.
are, and whilst we prepare for Daniel Botry from EGF. I always know change the initials EGF to EFG. But thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us. So we have, if you have questions, we need clarity, and want to understand more of these. Um, we have just 3 minutes. Share through the chat box, or unmute. Kindly unmute and share with us what you think about this presentation. It can be a commendation. It can also be a question. It can also be an addition to what he's mentioned. So the floor is opened to all of us here. Okay. It seems we are content with the knowledge shared by Dr. Andrew Sejukumhini with us. And as I mentioned earlier, okay, there is okay. So there's a comment from Patrick Abekwe, and he says, thank you, Dr. Jukumhini, for the great presentation. And then thank you so much also for doing the listening, and we look forward to having on it. So he said, just wanted you to go over how we could document again. Okay, so Dr. Ejukumene, could you please go over that portion about how to document these things, how to get the document, or how do you put them?
I
Okay,
if I understand well, if you
yes.
visit WHRO website, they've been kind enough to share some um, documents, publications, and startup guides
Mm,
for sea turtle conservation. So anyone can go there and download them for free. And the material that I just mentioned is there. There's another material that Daniel is going to talk about, which did a bycatch research on a device that reduces sea turtle bycatch. So all those materials are available for free on the WHRO website.
okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jakumhine. Now we are bringing on our next speaker. And our next speaker, as rightly introduced by Dr. Jakumhine, says Daniel. And there are two Daniels here. Not Daniel Anyorgia, no, but Daniel Kwesi Botre. And Daniel Kwesi Botre will be talking about reducing bycatch through sustainable fishing practices technologies. Now, who is Daniel Kwesi Botre? We would like to know him. Now, Daniel Kwesi Botre works with the EGF. But then what has he been doing for the past 20 years? Now, he's a seasoned professional with 20 years of diverse experience, spanning football coaching, sea turtle conservation, radio presentation, and volunteering with NGOs. Now, what he's also done is that he's the community officer at the Environmental Justice Foundation, and he plays a pivotal role in implementing project activities in Ghana, focusing on community engagement, research, and capacity building. His work in sea turtle conservation and the Net Free Seas project demonstrates his dedication to preserving marine life and fostering sustainable practices. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel has educational background in uh, that include diploma in journalism, information technology, and broadcasting. and that equipped him with solid foundation in communication and media. I didn't mention that he has interest in coaching. He holds a CAF and a GFA basic coaching license, further enhancing his credentials in sports coaching. Now, what we'll be hearing from Daniel is that Daniel will be talking to us on the reducing bycatch, and that would we hear extensively from him. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Daniel Kwesi Bochwe, who will be presenting to us shortly. So, but then I'll be presenting it from my side here. So I'll be doing that shortly. Then Daniel will take over. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure. Daniel, thank you very much for the brief introduction. And I'm going to take it from here. And hope you can hear me well. Hello, Daniel. Oh, okay. Okay. So, sorry, the presentation. So, I think Daniel will be trying his best for us to get something on our screens. But to start with, thank you very much once again for the opportunity. And my name is Daniel Kwesi Butchi from the Environmental Justice Foundation, EJF. My organization has since 2019 been working to protect sea turtles in Gumwafate. And for the past years, we've extended the program to Senya Breku, and we are looking forward to also going to other communities. We are using, the community-led approach where we have, the community volunteers. They are our main focus, and also, stakeholders in the communities. And in Gomwafete, we have 6 community volunteers and 3 in Senya Breku. Their main activity is to monitor turtle nesting activities along the coast, and also rescue, poaching, and also bycatch releases. So that's in short what I would say about our work, and also EJF. Now, for me to get into what we have today on our screens, my topic, I will be speaking briefly on sustainable fishing techniques and technology, where we are going to focus on the bycatch reduction devices and netting innovations. With this point, I'm going to touch we normally use. Then we will discuss some best practices for integrating these measures into our current practices, and also the way forward. So, an overview of the topic has been discussed. I would like to also extend my congratulations to Dr. Andrews Ejekumihene. He has always been my boss. So, for him to open the floor for me, I think, we are going to have a very smooth presentation, and also a very wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dr. Andrews Ejekumihene. Now, so we are going to talk about reducing bycatch. And we say reducing bycatch is a crucial step towards sustainable fishing practices. And one will say wherever there is a fishing, there is bycatch. So what is, bycatch, or incidental capture in a fishing gear, which is also known as a bycatch? It is likely the greatest threat to sea turtles and many other species worldwide. And research has shown that approximately 40% of all animals caught in fisheries are discarded as trash. So, which means, bycatch is really, affecting, our oceans, and also the ways in which we do, the ways in which we preserve or in our sustainable conservation activities. First of all, when we talk about the sustainable fishing techniques and the technologies, my boss, Dr. Andrew Sejekumihini, he wanted me to talk about it, but I think it's for them, those in the academia. We recently had a webinar which consists of the Ghana Sea Turtle Conference, and Dr. Kwame Edu Ejekum, he is the Global Monitoring for Environmental and Security, that's GMS, and also the lead for the Marine and Coastal Area Management in the North and West Africa, where he shared with us, some sustainable fishing techniques and also the technologies that are currently available for organizations who are into sea turtle conservation and stuffs. One will be the turtle excluder devices, which in short is the TEDS. This device prevents sea turtles from getting caught in fishing net, and somewhere this year, and Dr. Andy made mention of a friend from Portugal who visited him on a trial on some of these devices. And also, we also have the bycatch reduction devices, the BRDS, which I will talk about it briefly, and which has been designed to reduce bycatch of non-target species such as fish, seabird, and marine mammals. And then we'll move on to our fishing gear innovations, where we have the modified trawl nets, the long lines, and traps that normally reduce bycatch and protecting marine habitat. Also, the eco-labeling and certification. With all these 4 points, for me, those in the academia, especially Dr. Andrew Sejekumihini, they have really tested these devices, and they have really confirmed that it will be good. But looking at the situation here, where most of these conservation organizations don't have the resources and also the capacity to go into it. So, we can escape this scientific technologies into our later discussions, and maybe we can find ways. I think on the other day, Dr. Kwame Ejekum said his outfits, are ready to open up to any organization who would like to enter into this sustainable fishing techniques and technology. So in short, these are some of the techniques and the technologies that we normally use. Now, when we come to the bycatch reduction devices and the netting innovations, this is where I will touch briefly. When we talk about the reduction devices, we talk about the grates, the screens, and other devices that allow non-target species to escape. Now, over here, the problem is with gill, the various fishing practices. Most of our fishers use the gill net, which has been a bane to sea turtles. And we have these two type of the gill net. One, which is the conventional demersal gill net, which most of our fishers are using now. And it is, recording, or it is catching most of our sea turtles, which they tend to suffocate and also die before they can even bring them onshore. Now, the differences between the conventional and the modified. With the modified, I think with doctor and the authorities, they can come in so that we can devise a strategy for the fishers to, migrate from their old conventional demersal gill net, which has a 1 meter tie down, a 25-meter mesh deep, and also 15-centimeter stretch, and also a bag effect. When we talk about bag effect in our local parlance, we say kotoku, where most of the fishes has this bag effect. The kotoku, especially with the bee scenes, has big bag effect. And with this, when the net is being set up in this conventional demersal gill net, turtles swim into it and they got caught. They tried to swim upwards and got entangled in the back of the net. Now, with the modified missile nets, mostly there are no tie downs and there are also no bag effects, and they have, lower profile and a stiff net where the turtle can just swim into the net and also swim upwards and out. It's also the turtles with this modified demisal net. The turtles can also swim into stiffer nets, bounce off, turns around, and swims out without being caught. So with this, I think we can help with the fishes through our engagement to modify their nets from their old conventional net to reduce this type of bycatches. And then also with the tangle nets, sometimes they are being designed to reduce bycatch of marine mammals and also seabed. And then also we can record of circle hooks. Circle hooks also normally catch a lot of sea turtles, and it also targets non-target species of it. Now, with this integration, how can we save or how can we release turtles from this fishing net? We've done several engagements, we've done several training, and this type of nets or the gill nets are associated with high level of turtle bycatch. However, many of these principles will also be applied to entangle the turtles in fishing lines and other can help to solve this because of time. Now we can conduct bycatch assessment to identify areas and fisheries which with high bycatch rate. For instance, in my community, we have Fete and Senya. Now, with our bycatch assessment, we've noticed that people are aware of sea turtles, but as Dr. Andy Riley said, they regard it as food. So, with our assessment result, it's been they regard it as food. So they are continuously going to, just eat the turtles because they see it as normal fish and they can consume. So with this conducting bycatch assessment, it has really shown that the fishes and also the community will need to be sensitized about the sea turtle conservation, and especially with the bycatch, because when you talk about the fishes, most of them complains of low catches and no catches. So whenever they go and incidentally get a bycatch, and they will use it to replace the loss of the fish so that they can share to their families. Another one is also to collaborate with fisheries and stakeholders, as it's been rightly said. As our organization, we try to collaborate with stakeholders, especially with the Ghana Wildlife Division. And I can testify that Dr. Andy Ejekumihini has been of a great help through the start of this EGF Turtle Conservation Project in Gomwafete and Senya Breku, and also with the fisheries stakeholders. We are engaging with the chief fishermen, the local LABEX that has been formed to be part of, the coastal upkeeping. Then to monitor and also evaluate. With this, we regularly assess the effectiveness of bycatch reduction measures, which means, we try to educate fishers, we try to give them trainings on the bycatches, and we normally monitor, especially last year, almost, our record for the bycatch, the total year was 46, where Senya recorded 9 and Fete almost recording 35 or so. So, that's the difference, we do when it comes to monitoring and evaluation. And from starting November this month to date, as I'm speaking, Fete alone, we've recorded 13 bycatches, which consists of green turtles. They are the most predominant ones that we've been recording. Only this month, last month, I mean, the bycatch were 8, and this month 13. So I mean, we monitor and evaluate for us to get, if I mean, to assess the effectiveness of bycatch reduction. Then also provide training and education. We've done previously training fishers on bycatch releases and stuff. So I mean, we are doing a lot, and also with the last one, which is encourage policy and regulatory support. That's what I mean. We are also going to plead with the national authorities for them to come to our aid, because most fishers turns it out as if they don't care about the bycatch. We sometimes struggle for them to release these bycatches, and I think, I mean, we have the organizations and also the stakeholders for us to also do it. So in all this, I will end it here, and if there are further more questions and stuff, I'm on standby. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel Kwesi Botre, a man of many talents. And thank you so much for sharing with us these insights. And the community is connected. You know, Dr. Jacobini came in and introduced Daniel Kwesi Botre, and Daniel Kwesi Botre also came in and also talked about Dr. Jacobini. So that's the beauty of it. And that's what we intend to do with what we are working on today: knowledge sharing and making sure that we are making impact together as a community, as an alliance, as experts, as community workers, and as researchers. Thank you so much for sharing with us on this topic. And do we have questions? Do we have additions? Do we have anything to clarify? Something he didn't mention, or he spoke about that you need some clarity on? Who wants to ask? Whilst we are waiting for these questions, okay, we have Mazats LLC. You can kindly unmute and share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, so my question, I want to ask a question.
All right, sure.
In terms of the conservation of settlers, and then I've also read about community protected areas for this kind of conservation efforts. I do not know how it plays out in the case of settlers and then its environment. Is it something that could also be pushed to strengthen the effort, I mean, the community-led effort in settle conservation? That is my question. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mazat. And I think, I mean, where we stand now, for our part, it's work in progress for us. So we can get there. We can get there, because as Dr. Andrews Ejekumi Hene stated, I mean, he started with that. So with him, I mean, he can help us with the guidelines so that we can have Senya, Breku, Fete, and also Nyanyano as protected areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and for the input. Mazat, your hand is still up. I don't know whether if it was the hand from the previous question. Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for the last session with Charles Smith, and some might be wondering whether if he is in relation with Esther Smith, but I would like to learn more about him, Charles Smith, who will be talking to us from his perspective. Are there any questions? Do we have additions? Do we have contributions? Are there other things we would like to add? Is there something we put clarity on? Okay. If There are no additions. Now, let me introduce you our next speaker, and his name is Charles Smith, and he is an experienced program project coordinator and a development communication specialist and a media relations expert working experience with the European Union at the international level, local and an international non-governmental organization and the GBC in the area of implementing projects, advocacy campaigns, transparency, good governance, and media development. So our speaker has a wide range of experience with working with NGOs. He's a media consultant. Now, what would we want to hear from him and how that impacts us? Dr. Jekumi Hine started by telling us what we can do to support communities, solutions, real-time solutions. These are things that will bring a change. And I like the aspect where he talked about the safety of volunteers, because whilst we work to make sure that the community is better, he made that, an insightful position, saying that the perpetrators of the act can also be what transformed into advocates. So instead of having to say only do the arrest, but you change them into active participants who are ready to fight against others who are going to harm these marine animals. Now, Charles Smith, then we will be coming in as the last speaker, but then Daniel Botry talked about the bycatch, ways we could go about it, its impact, and how we could refine it. Now, we want to understand the role of policy and enforcement in sea turtle protection. The role of policy and enforcement in sea turtle protection. What are the policies that we have currently? How can we make this realistic? And how can we go about it? And this one is looking at legislation that are covering sea turtle protection, or sea turtles, let me put it that way. Because as Dr. Jikumin mentioned, there are activities that are meant to what? They've taken activities, as he being a former um, um, uh, worker with the Ghana Wildlife Division and all others. He's enforced the law. Now let's look at the policies. Do we need to refine them? Do we need to add more? Do we need to adapt some? Do we need to remove some? What should we do as community? What should we do as people in academia? What should we do as people working with these communities? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Charles Smith.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. And I must say I'm happy to have Daniel and then Dr. Andrews Ejekumhene on this. We've worked together as colleagues in the past. Daniel mentioned that the earlier trainings and all the trainings in Gomuafete, Dr. Ejekumhene was a resource person. And Daniel and I were colleagues until last year when I decided to take a curve from work and then venture more into the academia. So today's presentation or the stakeholder engagement, one thing that I want to share, which you've given a prelude to, has to do with legislation. And let me say that sea turtles have been protected in this country right from 1961. So we all know that we gained our independence in 57. As at 61, the country was upbeat about protecting sea turtles. So it tells you how important this particular species that we are talking about is to the country and to the survival of the millions of people. Now, in terms of legislation in 1961, the very key thing that came out was for the country to pass the Wild Animals Preservation Act. And then also went further in 71, 10 years after, to come out with the wildlife conservation regulations. Then again in 71, there was a wildlife reserves regulations. So this regulation and these conservations and these acts, what it did basically was to grant sea turtles full protection because they were classified as a Schedule 1 species. And I'll delve more into that as I move on.
So this meant that it will be illegal or it is illegal for you to capture, possess, or sell any part of a sea turtle, whether in the water or at the nesting beaches. Now, Doctor, you mentioned some of the credentials of Dr. Andrew Jakumihene, and it's also worth noting that Ghana, as a country, signed onto a number of international agreements. One of it is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, and then the Convention on Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. In 2008, looking at all the various regulations, legislations, and the acts that I mentioned earlier, Ghana decided to consolidate or bring all these acts together or regulations together into one legislation. So there was the Wildlife Resources Management Bill. This was laid before the fifth, the seventh, fifth, sixth, and seventh parliament. But eventually, I mean, we were fortunate to have the eighth parliament, which is still in session, pass this particular bill on 28 July 2023. And then also, we also had the president assenting to it in March this year. So we have a new act, that is a Wildlife Resources Management Act. And that is where I would want us to have or focus on in our discussion, because currently this is what protects sea turtles in Ghana. So we have the Wildlife Resources Management Act 2024, Act 115. Now, if we look into this particular act that I'm talking about, sea turtles are described as fully protected animals. And we will find this in the first schedule. So in this first schedule of the act, what it means is that you cannot hunt, you can't capture, you can't destroy, you can't possess, or any part of the species that are listed in that schedule. And one of the species listed in this schedule is or are the sea turtles. They are being referred to in there as Chelonia. So if you check the first schedule under the Chelonia, they will tell you all marine turtles, including hawksbill, green turtle, which Daniel mentioned, leatherback, and the rest that you can think of. Now, are these, or how is the protection done? So if we look at section 19 of the act that I'm talking about, that is the Wildlife Resources Management Act, it tells you that anyone who contravenes, it tells you that the animals that are specified under the first schedule, which I mentioned, they are fully protected and you cannot destroy, take them, or do anything to them, as I mentioned earlier. And then it also goes further to say that as a person, which we are witnessing in our various landing beaches, our communities, as the two presenters earlier mentioned, you see people hunt for them, capture them, molest them, destroy them, kill them, eat them, and all of that. But this act is telling us in section 19, subsection 3, that you cannot, as a person, hunt, capture, molest, disturb, or destroy a fully protected animal. And turtles are part of the fully protected animals. It again goes further to say that you cannot or you shall not possess a fully protected animal, whether captured or killed. And it goes further to say that you can or you shall not possess product or part of any of these fully protected animals. And unfortunately, it is happening, at least from what the earlier presenters have said. So what happens to those who contravene or who goes against what is in the law or what the act says? Now, when you contravene any of these things, you are liable on summary conviction to a fine of not less than 250 penalty units. Now, a penalty unit is 12 cedis. Okay, so if we are talking about 250 penalty units, okay, that is 3,000 cedis, and not more than 500 penalty units, that is what, 6,000, or a term of imprisonment of not less than a year, and not more than 2 years, or both. So this is what happens if you decide to kill sea turtles, catch them, go and destroy them, eat them, or whatever you want to do to harm these protected animals. We've heard of people trading in it as well. it is wrong or it is illegal for you to trade in a wildlife and wildlife products if you don't have what a permit. And even in as it stands, because sea turtles are regarded as fully protected animals, there shall not or there cannot be any permit or license for you to what use them, trade them. So this takes us to section 20 of the act that I'm talking about. It says that trading in wildlife and wildlife products is subject to the grant of what? A permit or a license accessible under what? This act. But there is no way you're going to get a license to go and trade in wildlife or kill it. So are there prohibitions for you to use these wildlife, let's say the sea turtles, without wildlife use rights? Yes, there are. Section 20 of this act says that as a person, you shall not, and anytime that the word shall comes, it means that it is what mandatory. It says you shall not engage in any activity specified under section 20, which I had earlier on mentioned. Okay. Now, when you contravene this, there are punishment as well for you as a person or as an individual. If you do it for the second time to there are what punishment. Are there licenses that somebody can get to go and then poach turtles or kill them or eat them or whatever? As far as section 22 of this act, this current act that we have is concerned, there are no licenses or permits that can be issued to you or grant you access to go and capture, destroy nests or eggs or possess sea turtles in Ghana. It is not there. So Dr. Andre Jekuni also mentioned he's worked with the Wildlife Division before. Now, there is a power to arrest, even without a warrant. So here, that power is given to a wildlife officer. And the act or the law says that the wildlife officer may arrest without a warrant a person whom the officer reasonably suspects to have committed an offense under what? This act. So this is clearly stated in section 33. So you can arrest the person without a warrant if the name and the address of that person is not disclosed by the person on demand by the officer. So you go and catch someone, like for instance, let's assume that Daniel is a wildlife officer in Gomwafete. Okay, and then he meets somebody who is poaching a sea turtle, and the person is trying to get information from the person as to the person's where he lives and all of that, and the person refuses that. As a wildlife officer, he can arrest them. He can arrest them. Now, also, if the person gives the name and address, which the officer reasonably believes to be false, if he gives false information, the wildlife officer can also arrest. Again, the officer has the reason to believe the person will abscond. Once he has the reason to believe that, oh, this guy, if I leave him, he will run away, then he can arrest the person. Now, when you arrest the person, what next? What do? Do you beat the person? Do you seize the person's items or whatever? The law says that once you arrest that person, okay, you will send the person to the nearest police station without delay. Without delay. And we know that in Ghana, when you arrest somebody, it should be within 48 hours. Beyond 48 hours, you must arraign the person, or the person must be arraigned before the court. Are there regulations? Are there regulations when it comes to sea turtle? There was a question by one of the colleagues, Mazat LLC, and he spoke about what? Protected areas. So this act gives the minister the authority or the power. Okay, so if you look at section 37, it says that the 37.1, it says the minister may, on the recommendation of the commission and by an ally, make regulations to give effect to the provisions of the act. So one of the key things in there at 37.18 is that the minister can recommend for what? A regulation or an ally on the basis that they want to provide for the protection and preservation of specified habitats. So where they nest, for instance, we can then regard the nesting sites of these sea turtles in Adanyano or Kumuafete or any other place as what? Protected or partially protected, so that we protect the nesting sites of these species. Then if you look at the I, 37.1I, it says that the minister can also make a legislation to prohibit the taking of eggs of birds, turtles, or other animals. So here the focus will be on turtles. So there can also be a legislation by the minister that anybody that we catch taking sea turtles at the beach, this and that should happen to the person, or the law should deal with the person in such a manner. So, in short, what I want to say is that the law is very clear on protecting sea turtles in Ghana, and this law or our law classifies them as wild animals. So, therefore, you cannot capture, possess, sell, destroy the nests or take the eggs of a sea turtle, whether onshore or offshore. And it is important that we all come together and protect as well as conserve our sea turtles because they are very important in terms of the fishery sector. Dr. Andrew Ejikun mentioned their work, as in eating jellyfish, reading, if for want of a better word, in our oceans. I mean, the seagrass. And we all know that at least 10% of our population depends on fisheries. So it is very, very important for us to ensure that we protect sea turtles. Ordinarily, I know that the expectation would have been for me to speak about other things in terms of communication. But I think that this has been of great importance because I knew I've worked with Daniel and then Dr. Ejekun. I knew the angle that they would be coming from. And so that is why today I made us focus on it. A lot in our conversations or discussions with community members, we mentioned that if they do this, this is what they can be arrested. But what does the law really say? And that is why I decided that today we delve more into this enforcement bit and then no. So I'll end here and then allow for any questions that others may have.
Thank you so much, Charles Smith, and sending much support to you for supporting us with this policy and also insights on legislation. Now, most importantly, I realize that you dwelt a lot more on the legal basis and other things, but we also like to understand what are also the communal laws or communal um, bylaws. Let me say those ones within the community that also impacts. That's my question though. I know certainly my colleagues and some other participants here would like to add more on it. And thanks so much for the presentation and sharing with us what the law says on sea turtle, what we can do with it, and how we can improve it. Thank you so much, Charles Smith. And as I've always said, it's a community on knowledge sharing, partnerships, and driving growth. Thank you so much, Charles Smith, once again. So yes, that is my question. No, first of
Okay.
all, yes, but I don't know if any other person has a question, an input, and anything else. Okay. In the meantime, Charles will start with mine, and then if there are others, he adds up to it.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, in terms of conventions, it depends on the community. When we started this whole work, Daniel and Dr. Ejekumini will tell you that there are some communities that will tell you that if the chief fisherman sees that you've been able to capture sea turtle and then killed it, or even try not to release it into the sea, this and that will be the repercussion. So it's at the community level that these decisions are taken. Myself, prior to getting exposed to issues about sea turtles, all that I knew as the uses was that if you go into our typical communities where we have our gods, you will see the carapace of these sea turtles being used to cover sort of let me use the local word, the posuban. They use it to cover it. So I thought, I mean, that was the uses. So it depends on the community and the kind of legislation that they have in place. For instance, because of resources, some projects have been able to speak to chief fishermen, so they enforce it at the local level. They have decided that once they trap or catch a sea turtle as a bycatch, payment will be made to these individuals and they will release it. Or once they destroy their net, they will then make payment for them and they will release it. There are other places that it is abominable to bring it because in such localities or in such areas, they see sea turtles as their gods. There are communities in the Volta region that sea turtles are their gods and they don't kill it. So immediately they even catch it as a bycatch, they release it on shore before they get down or they land. So this is what I would say in terms of local legislation or legislation at the community level. It varies. It varies. But generally, what I want us to have it in mind is that in the midst of all of these variations at the community level, what stands tall is the national law, this act. That is what will stand tall. And at worst scenarios or situations, it will be the Constitution of Ghana.
As you said, we come from communities, and that means that each community has its also guidelines and and conserving its environment. If I remember, and I always tell this story where um, one of our fellows did mention sometime last year that their family totem is a turtle. So that means for them, they are going to protect it, whether there's a law or not. For them, turtles are things that they wouldn't harm because it's their totem, family totem. So that means that with every community, there comes legislation, and there are bylaws, there are regulations, there are traditions or customs that protect the environment. And thank you so much for shedding light on this perspective. I really appreciate this, and I've seen a hand from EP Abodo, and would like to hear from EP Abodo. Then we call this meeting, bring this meeting to an end. So EP Abodo, your hand is up. We'd like to hear from you.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Mr. Moderator, Daniel. And I also want to extend a big congrats to my very good friends, Daniel Boche and Charles Smith, and then to Doctor as well, for the very insightful contributions. Um, my mine is not necessarily a question, but a very short contribution. I want to liken the fight in the turtle conservation sector to the galamsey menace that we have in Ghana. The fight against galamsey in Ghana have become very difficult because people have tied um, that illegal practice to livelihood and survival. And I tend to want to extend that also to the turtle sector, whereby the law it's it is very clear on which species must be protected. If turtles part of such species, and certainly so, you still find people trading in turtle and turtle products. Now, when you go down to question some of these things, you will realize that it is directly tied to livelihood, and some have been trading in these things for quite a very long time. And then even the fishers have stories of trying to justify the catch for turtles, because if you go at sea and you are unable to get the quantum of fish that you you are targeted to be able to get to sell and earn some income, and then you happen to get some turtles that can help you to balance off the expenditure, then they tend to use livelihood to justify this. But the law is also the law. Once it is wrong, it is wrong. Once it is illegal, it is illegal. But the key point I want to tackle here is the link to livelihood. And any action that is linked to livelihood, it is mostly best fought through a direct community-led approach. The people themselves must be led to know that this is completely illegal. That is the first basic step. The next one is for the people themselves to identify their own problems, and the third step is for them, for they themselves, to propose solutions on how to tackle the menace. And then it wouldn't look like anybody else has come to impose this on them and is only telling them about law. The people themselves are rising up to protect the turtle species. So this you can do if you get the buy-in of the chief and the elders. You can involve the school authorities, you can involve the district assemblies and all that, and only play a facilitation role. If not, the education alone and the drumming on the law and the law to them alone, it may really not go far, because they see some part of it as a livelihood matter. So so let's see how we can think through one day on a simple community-led approach that will help, that will guide the people themselves to fight against the menace. And that would be more effective, in my humble opinion. um that is it. Once again, thanks to all the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, EP Abado, for your presentation and or for your submission appropriately. And I'm grateful for the insights shared with us. As our conversation today touched on both the community, what we can do as a community, what we can do at the policy and legislation level, and then what we can also do in terms of when the perpetuations are being made and how we can avoid it, how we can refine it. Thank you so much for joining the call. It's been a pleasure having to moderate this session and having intellectuals, discuss issues they are passionate about is something you can't, you know, you can't quantify, because these are people who have lived it, they've gone to school to learn it, and they are still in it. So it's something yet they are speaking out of their existence rather than only just the documentation purposes. But thank you so much for coming through. Our guest that's having Dr. Idris Ejekumhine, and having Daniel Kwesi, and then Charles Smith closing it up for us. I appreciate you all for coming, and we look forward to continue this our conversation, and looking forward to the next ocean conference that will be held. And I know certainly that we'll reconvene and certainly have much more bigger projects. Looking forward to more collaborations next year. It's a pleasure having to host you at Sustainable Ocean Alliance, Ghana. Whatever you have, whatever impact you want to make, kindly don't hesitate to reach out to me at danielanyotge@gmail.com, and I'll gladly receive you. I have all your contacts. I'll share my contacts in it. I think the only person I am meeting for the first time is Mazad. The only people I'm meeting for the first time is Mazad, Christina, and EP Abodo. So in a while, we'll be sharing our contacts in the comment section for further engagement in case the call ends. So this is my email, and kindly don't hesitate to reach out to me, and also add my number. So if there's anything we'd like to continue further, please don't hesitate. I appreciate you all for coming through, and thank you, Prince, for joining all the way from your space outside the continent. Thank you so much, and have a pleasant day, and Merry Christmas to you all.